Hey, Treasure History. Today's essential question is, what really happened during Da Gama's voyage around Africa? You guys are going to absolutely dominate the eye leap. I mean, stomp all over it until it's ground up in a million little pieces on the floor. We have 18 days of history class until that happens. Show me what you remember from Unit 6 about world religions. Yesterday we talked about Mr. Vasco da Gama and his trip to India. What's the name of the country where Da Gama started from? Prince Henry was also from this country, and it was known for its exploring. So yesterday you got the overall central idea of Da Gama's trip. You got the story that the textbooks tell us. But today we're going to get a little deeper into what really happened when Vasco da Gama went to India. This story isn't pretty, but it's important for us to know. After all, Da Gama is considered a hero, a great explorer. But from the African perspective, Da Gama was actually a pretty bad guy. This is the route that Da Gama took to get from Portugal to India. Of course, his big achievement is that he was the first person to sail all the way under and around the Cape of Good Hope to get to the other side of Africa. But we also see that he made some pit stops along the eastern African coast on the way to India. Let's start examining what happened while he was there. In January of 1497, Da Gama and his crew landed on the African coast. They stayed in this spot for over a month. When they went back to sea, they were sailing for the next 6 months, and they started to get sick. Their feet and hands began to swell, and their gums were growing over their teeth, so they could not eat. We know today that the sailors were experiencing scurvy, a disease caused by a lack of vitamin C from poor nutrition. 2/3 of the crew who sailed with Vasco da Gama died of scurvy in those months. Da Gama's first major stop at a port city was in the trading port of Mozambique. He knew that the people who lived here were Muslims, and he knew that they would be suspicious of Christians. After all, the Islamic and Byzantine empires were still fighting over land. So, Da Gama pretended to be a Muslim, and he managed to talk to the Sultan, or king, of the area. He offered to trade with the Sultan. But Da Gama had come totally unprepared. He had brought with him only cheap and common items to trade. Food that the people of Africa already had, poor quality cloth, boring jewelry. He thought the Africans would be thrilled with those items, but they knew that these things had very little value. Da Gama and the other Europeans had no idea of the quality of items that Africans were trading in this part of the world. Gold, silver, pearls, silk, ivory, very valuable items were already being traded here. So the people of Mozambique grew suspicious of Da Gama. Who was this trader who had nothing of value to trade? So they chased him and his men back to their boats. The Portuguese explorers shot cannons from their boats onto land in retaliation. The people of Mozambique saw the red crosses on Da Gama's ships and figured out that he was a Christian. A battle began, both sides shooting at the other. Da Gama and his men managed to escape. The next stop for Da Gama and his men was even worse. This was a city called Mombasa, and the people who lived there had already heard about Da Gama's attack on Mozambique. The Sultan of Mozambique had already planned to attack Da Gama. But Da Gama learned of this plan by torturing 2 Muslim men. He poured hot oil on them until they confessed. Da Gama and his men left Mombasa, but before they did, they stole goods from Muslim ships. So Da Gama and his men moved on to a city-state called Malindi. There, the Sultan wanted to be allies, so he promised them a skilled navigator who could help them get to India. Da Gama and his men set off on their way to India. When they got there, they again had trouble trading with the Muslim merchants. The hats and honey that Da Gama offered insulted the traders. Also, the news of Da Gama's bad behavior in Africa soon reached India. The people of India saw Da Gama and his men as no more than pirates. The Portuguese escaped India with some spices and other goods. So after all that, the men were still seen as heroes when they returned to Portugal. Can you believe it? Sure, they had made a long and amazing journey around Africa, but they had also made a lot of enemies and treated people from Africa really badly. Still, the king and queen of Portugal sent Gama on more journeys back to India because they were so proud of him. In fact, this is a statue of Gama that still stands today in Portugal. So now for your practice, you're going to investigate Gama's bad behavior even more closely on his next trip to Africa.